Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've never been interviewed before, so this is new.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that I've spoken to. It's kind of how it is, especially like in the bodybuilding world. It's such a niche sport that there's not a lot of like media. It's getting more, of course, now, but compared to like other sports, it's not as there's way more media and other type of athletics. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like if you're in it, you know about it. If you're not, you have
yeah.
really no clue.
Absolutely. How many people do you run into on a daily basis that think like bodybuilding is strange, especially for a
Yeah.
woman?
Oh
It's
yeah, I've gotten quite a few odd looks here and there, or people who are just like, what?
if you don't mind me asking, but like what do you do for a living?
So I am a personal trainer, nutrition coach, and life coach.
Okay, okay. So your whole like endeavors, business endeavors are in the industry. So it's not like you
Yeah.
work. Like I was talking to a girl one time who was like you, a figure athlete, and she was a teacher, and it's like for I think like second or third graders or something like that. And can you
Mhm.
imagine if you're like you have all that muscle and you're teaching like kids, they probably look at you like kind of strange, parents are
You're
probably
like a
like,
superhero.
I know. So how did you get into like bodybuilding?
Well, I kind of accidentally fell into it, I guess you could say. I've played sports all my life, from like swim to martial arts to volleyball, basketball. And then I got into CrossFit my senior year of high school. And that was like kind of my sport. I was like a diehard CrossFitter.
Mhm.
And I started working for a gym, and I kind of just wanted to, I'd heard a lot about bodybuilding. I knew a couple people, but not a lot.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, I kind of just want to see if I can do the diet part. I want to see if I can like actually change my body to look like someone like that. Because I had like a CrossFit body.
Mhm.
I really big traps, I strong biceps, not really any lats actually, which is surprising because that's like my biggest part now. And so I just really wanted to see if I could do it and stick to it.
Mhm.
And about like halfway through my first prep on my own, I was like, wow, this shit's hard. Like, and if I'm gonna do this, like I'm all in. And then after my first show, I was hooked. I was
Mhm.
obsessed.
How did you like when you felt like it was difficult, did you ever have like thoughts of like, okay, I'm gonna like probably like back out of this, or are you excited?
No.
Because there's like different kinds of people, right? Like sometimes you have
Yeah.
people that like face struggle and then they just kind of come backwards. They're like, ah, I don't want to deal with that. Others,
Mm.
like I always tell people, like for me, it's like when I face difficulty, like it actually like ignites me a little bit more. It gives me like a reason to do something. Like I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. Like my wife and I sometimes we'll go hiking, and like I'll if we go somewhere, like sometimes her thought is, okay, well, let's go like somewhere where it's like a little bit easier. We'll get used to it. We'll ease into it. And my thought is like, no, I want to go to the more like difficult,
Mhm.
stages. And so while, in that case, there might be some safety involved, you want to be careful. But my mental processes is kind of like that, where like struggle tends to intensify me. So in your
Yeah.
case, like, was that kind of how it was for you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just a very like structured person in general.
Mhm.
Like I always say like I run off of my anxiety, where like I'm kind of like go, go, go. And so when I like started bodybuilding, a lot of it's very structured. Like if you ask any bodybuilder, like everything's like consistent and you have to
Mhm.
be like on top of it. So I feel like that kind of like ignited even more in me.
Mhm.
And it just kind of fit really well with my personality. And
Yeah.
so there was never really a moment where I wanted to stop. Also, because I told people I'm doing a show. And so if I tell people, I'm like, well, I'm not going to back out now. Like,
So
so
it kind of like makes you
it's my own
accountable. Yeah.
accountability. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By telling people, like, oh, yeah, I'm doing a show, I'm posting like the progression on Instagram on stories and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I can't like quit
Mhm.
now. Like all these people see that I'm doing a show. So
Right. So when did you do that first show?
My first show was when I was 20 going into 21. So I'm 24 now. So about 4 years
4 years
ago.
ago. It's not too far.
Yeah.
Is how many like so you're in the NPC, you're like you're
Mhm.
striving for your pro card. Like what are your like what are your how can I say like what steps are you trying to take to get there? I know you said like your lats are like your best part. Is that was there anything that you're like working on that you think is gonna really like, move you forward?
Yeah. So well, like my first show, I didn't have a coach. I kind of just did it on my own because I just was doing it.
Yeah.
And then my second show, I got a coach. Um, and then I switched coaches and now I have my coach now. So I have learned a lot from that, doing it on my own versus having a coach. And so really like dialing it in, and even like off season, I'm always tracking and stuff. And I've made it my lifestyle
Hmm.
versus I know some people who will do a show and they're very like consistent on top of it during prep. And then off season, they kind of just live their normal life and they're like, okay, like cool. But for
Yeah.
me, I want to do everything I possibly can to move further. And so to me, it's important that I'm consistent even in the off season. And so currently, right now, I'm working on my legs a lot. That's always a work in progress for me.
Mhm.
I hold a lot of my weight in my legs, and it's very hard for them to lean out. And
Mhm.
so I had a pretty big breakthrough this last prep season because I finally was able to get my legs like the leanest they've ever been, like see like the separation, which was
Mhm.
super cool to see that. Because it's always been a weak point for me. So
What
legs are always something I'm working on, as well as growing the shoulders more.
mhm.
And yeah, my back has always been my strongest point.
What do you attribute that like breakthrough in the leg department? Is there something in particular that you did different, or is
Yeah.
this just progression?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is progression. Like, we get better each year, and it doesn't happen in 1 year.
Hmm.
So, because like over the 4 years, I've put in work every off season. But the off season prior to this last prep, was my first time reverse dieting very strictly with my coach, and my first time having a coach through off season rather than just during prep. And so I was tracking every day, tracking my weight every day. I was increasing my carbs and my fats in a strategic manner. And so we really amped up my metabolism, my insulin resistance. And that made a huge difference because I was able to come into my prep even leaner
Yeah.
because my metabolism was fixed, basically.
Well, that's like you mentioned that a little bit earlier, how some competitors just they train, they're really on top of it during prep, and then once the prep is over, they basically become like a regular, like a regular person
Yeah.
that does. And so, and you talking about coming in leaner, like that's so like that's such a big deal, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
a lot of times you'll see people in the off season and they gain so much weight. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen it some with women. I've definitely seen it with men, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes they just blow up. And I think there's like a fallacy there. And some people speak out against it, but there's a fallacy there by and large that if you look bigger in the off season, that somehow that translates to more muscle when you cut down, right? And you, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not really the case, is it?
No, I don't think so personally. I think a lot of people think that I don't really like using the term bulking
Mhm.
either, just because really you don't need to be eating an excessive amount of calories to put muscle on. You can still be at your maintenance calories, and if you're working hard, you can still put on muscle. And I think a lot of people overdo it in their off season, or they don't reverse out of it. And so they do end up gaining a lot of weight, and they may think it's muscle, but a lot of times it's also fat. And so
Right.
if you're coming out of a prep where you're extremely low carbs, low fat, low everything, and your metabolism is super, super suppressed, your body is basically in that like survival state. And so if you go right to eating a ton of food again, like you were before, your body's going to absorb all of that and store it, because it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know when we're going to go back into like survival mode. So I'm going to store all this. And
Mhm.
so I think a lot of people don't realize that. And then it's one, they're really hurting their metabolism, and they're going to have an even harder time getting that leanness that they want for their next show. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge learning for me, because I've had those off seasons. I've had an off season where I gained the most weight I ever have. I was really strong, like pulling the
Mhm.
most weight I ever have, but I didn't feel comfortable. And I think that's another thing too, is especially for women, is the whole body dysmorphia thing, going out of a
Right.
prep where you're extremely lean, like you're at your stage weight, like ideal look. And then you go into an off season and you're gaining weight and you're getting back normal weight, but that's a big issue too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's kind of the thing, right? Like sometimes I'll see people and they'll, you know, say like excuse me, on their Instagram or whatever, they'll be like, "Oh, well, this is my weight, you know, I'm whatever, and it's a, you know, a large amount of weight." But then you look at them and they're like, "Well, how much is actually muscle, and how much just body
Mhm.
fat you gained from like post show or off season, you know?" And
Yeah.
and it's like the more you gain, more body fat you gain, the more, you know, you're going to have to lose when you cut and or when you prep, you know, and it's it's such a struggle. And that's, and to your point, the body dysmorphia, then you have like the mental aspect of it is you see your body and it's, you know, it looks amazing, and within a short time you look terrible again. It's like it's got to play, I would imagine it's got to
Mhm.
play like a major factor in your, you know, in your mental state, in your psyche.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I've healed my relationship with food. Like I've dealt with that too before. And that's something that I do implement into like my coaching, with combining nutrition and life coaching together, is I try to like help people with that, because I've definitely been there. And it it can really take a toll on you, mentally, physically. And the difference with going into like a reverse diet right out of my prep and then going into this last prep that I had was I only gained about 3 to 5 pounds from my stage weight, which was ideally what we wanted. I was able to increase my calories from like 1,400, 1,300 to 2,000, 2,100 calories. And that was a significant difference while still maintaining the weight that I had. So
Mhm.
obviously, like I still had like water retention, glycogen retention, and stuff in the off season, which is normal. But I didn't gain a significant amount of weight, and I was able to go into my last prep that I had way leaner. I looked way more stage ready, and I felt good too.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Feeling good, that's important, right? Like
Yeah.
being on your prep and feeling good, because I mean, there is a level of suffering that's going to be there, but
Mhm.
there's a difference in, you know, feeling like terrible on your prep, the way you shouldn't. And then you know, feeling good. Like it's just you feel better on stage, you know, it's an easier transition. It's just everything just works much better. Um what do you think? Do you think that at this point, there's a benefit to having a coach versus like just doing it on your own? Like, would you recommend people get a coach when they compete, or just try to stick it out?
I think it really just depends
Mhm.
on the person. I think if someone has never done a show before and they know people who have done shows, there's so much information online that if it's your first show and you don't even know if you want to stick to it, you don't necessarily need a coach.
All right.
I didn't have a coach my first show. I just had people who I knew who were helping me out
Mhm.
and like guidance. And I was just studying posing videos. I did get a posing coach for 2 times just to learn the poses,
Mhm.
but I was just watching videos, and you can learn a lot just from that, because the sport's expensive. And
Yeah.
so don't waste your money on a coach if it's your first show and you don't even know if you want to continue this sport.
Right.
But if you're looking to really progress and like move up levels and potentially get your pro card, I think a coach is always extremely beneficial, because they have a different set of eyes. Like there's going to be days where you're looking at yourself and you're like, I don't feel like I'm stage ready. I don't see a difference from last week photos. And coach can not be like, no, no, no. Like, look here, you're leaner in this area. Or no,
Right.
we're on the right track. Like, don't worry. And they can kind of take away that stress. And then you don't even have to think about like, okay, what do I have to change my macros to? They have that different set of eyes and they take away the stress
Right.
from a prep, because preps are stressful in general. And especially the weeks leading up to show day, you don't want to have to be thinking that much because cognitively you might not be there.
Yeah, yeah, no, good point. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you'll see people that are even at the highest level of bodybuilding and they'll still have coaches. And my thought process was, I mean, you can do it on your own. It's possible. It's just that it just takes off like all the intangibles off of you, you know. It's
Yeah.
all the thinking, all the processing, and you can just focus on your, you know, your endeavor, your sport. Like some, you know, but we can take another sport, for example, like LeBron James, right? LeBron James still has like shooting coaches and you know, strength and conditioning coaches and all this. Now, like, do you think any coach can really show LeBron James how to play basketball better? No, of course not. But it's like, but he has him there because they take off like a load so he can like focus on the sport itself. So I definitely feel like coaches are extremely helpful. But
Yeah.
bodybuilding, it's like, and I imagine other sports are like this too. You really
Mhm.
got to be cautious about who your coaches are. Some coaches are, you know, are known promoters of things that you probably don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's especially as a woman, like in the sport, you really got to be like cautious with those extra supplementary things, you know, and so
Yeah,
forth.
absolutely. And yeah, I always tell people too, like, find a coach that not only like knows their stuff, is very educated, does it in a healthy manner, but also that you connect with. Because if you guys aren't on the same page, or like you guys are like disputing against like what you should be doing, you don't have rapport, like it's not going to work well. And
Right.
there has to be that trust there, because when it comes to anything like in the nutrition realm, this is something I tell my clients too. I'm like, I hope that you trust me, and I would like you to trust me, because I'm telling you what you should be putting in your body. And like, that's like, your body is sacred. Like, that's
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. So there has to be that trust there.
Right. And I mean, you live in your body, right? Like, unlike any other sport, it's like bodybuilding really translates to your regular life because it's
Mhm.
your your sport is building up your body, which you live in all the other times that you're not like bodybuilding. So it's like you want to make sure that you're, you know, as healthy and as like as beneficial, as benefited by your coach as possible, if that makes any kind of sense. But
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So did you immediately go into figure or did you consider like any other divisions?
I immediately went into figure.
Got it.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to do that. One, because I naturally just have more muscle mass on my upper body and I didn't want to lose that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
and so yeah.
yeah, I'm pulling up some
um,
of your Instagram pictures here on stage. So are these were these pictures recently or
Yeah, so
okay.
this was my second show I did this prep. I did two shows. So
Hmm.
this was the second one. So
Got
definitely
it.
like the leanest I've ever come in here. I love the category.
Hmm.
Um, I've always been a fan of like the round shoulders and having like a very defined upper body along with the legs and the leanness. And
Hmm.
I just find it very attractive. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'll be switching to another category.
So no wellness categories for you.
No,
Yeah.
I thought about it, but I think I want to keep pushing myself to like lean out the legs and
Mhm.
see what I can do with that.
Got it. Got it. So what do
Yeah.
you think about the fact that they're you know, they tend to be adding more divisions as the years go on, wellness of course being the most recent
Mhm.
one. Is that you think that's a benefit to the sport? You think it's a detractor?
I actually haven't thought about it a whole lot. I think it's cool that they are adding that middle division for females who, because I've honestly met quite a few females who say like, oh yeah, like the judges said like I'm kind of in between like categories. Like I'm not
Mhm.
bikini, but I'm not figure. And so
Yeah,
that
those
can be like
tweeners.
frustrating for a
Mhm.
lot of people. And so I think it is cool that they did add that for those who want to compete in it and their genetics just don't align with figure or with bikini.
Right.
Um, and so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point of view. Yeah, because it's like you might be a really good athlete, but you might be a really good bodybuilder, whatever division you're in, but it's like you might just not fit the criteria that they're looking for. So if they make
Yeah.
criteria that's, it's a balance, right? Because then you can't it's the people that say it's a little bit of a detraction is, well, where did you stop, right? That's always like that
Mhm.
line, like that balance, like how many divisions do you make? Do you make a division for every type of,
Yeah.
but I think there's
That
a
takes away the competitive aspect of like pushing yourselves because
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's definitely a balance. I think that like right now they've struck a good balance. I think and we'll see where they go, from here. But
Mhm.
what do you think about the top um, figure girls right now? Do you see like Sydney as the champ? Do you feel like somebody else should?
So I follow it a little bit. I haven't been as up to date
Mhm. Got it.
lately. And so yeah, I'll watch here and there.
That
But I don't necessarily have like a big opinion.
Got
Yeah.
it. That's interesting. Like I'll come across
Mhm.
people that are like extremely like into their division. They're like constantly following who's winning, who's doing this, who's doing
Yeah.
that. And then I come across other people that are like, I'm just focused on myself. I'm just focused on coming in there the best that I can. And wherever the cards fall, that's where they fall. And then I just keep moving forward. And it sounds like you're more the latter. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm slowly integrating myself more into
mhm.
the community of like figure and stuff, but yeah, I'm definitely not one of those people who's like always watching like the top people and stuff. And I'm kind of just doing my own thing. I have a lot that goes on with like what I do with work and stuff. So it's not really my
Sure.
main
Yeah,
focus.
got it.
But
So
yeah.
about that, about your work and such, you said that you're a trainer, that you do some like nutritional. I think you mentioned another aspect of your job that you do. I can't remember now the
Yeah.
last.
I'm an NLP practitioner, life coach.
Okay. And can you talk about like that a little bit? When you
Yeah.
say a life coach, like what do you do?
Yeah. So I mean, anyone can, there's a lot of people out there who can just say that they're a life coach, right? So
Right.
there's
That's
based
why
on
I'm
just like what they
curious.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So mine is NLP, which stands for neuro linguistic programming. So it
Mhm.
is a practitioner certification through an institute. And what it focuses on is basically how the brain works, how the mind works through your unconscious mind and your conscious mind,
Mhm.
and all the neural pathways that run between it, and how we can alter and shift our mindsets around certain things or push past limiting beliefs that we have instilled in us or programmed in us from whether it be like ages 0 to 7, things that we have absorbed from our parents,
Mhm.
other people, mentors, things like that. So I help people push past like limiting beliefs that are currently stopping them, whether it be in a fitness endeavor,
Mhm.
business, relationships,
Got it.
health, anything in life. We push past limiting beliefs that are stopping them or creating friction in their life.
So would you say it's like close to a form of therapy? Like, is it that
Yeah, it's a
to
form of
that?
therapy.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And how long have you been doing that?
This was a more recent thing. I've been doing this
Mhm.
for about a year. And I've been a nutrition coach for about 3.5, 4 years now.
Yeah. So did you decide that that's where you want to take your life professionally when you started to get into like competing and fitness and all that? You kind of like dove head first into it.
Yeah, because I was already doing the personal training and group coaching. And
Mhm.
then once I started learning more about what I could do to change my body and my physique, I was like, wow, like I want to know all of it. And so
Yeah.
I just started like digging deep and going through, and I have experimented with all the different types of diets. I've done keto, I've done paleo, I've done fasting, I've done
Right.
a lot of it just so that I know what it's like so I can help other people in it. And then I got really into gut health. And so I started just continuing my education with the nutrition, and that has become like the biggest part of my own business. And
Mm.
then something kind of felt missing. Um, and that's when I started looking into the life coaching, because when it comes to nutrition or helping people with dieting and all of that, yes, a lot of it is the food and what they're eating, but you can tell someone what to eat. But if they have bad habits, or they have body dysmorphia, or they have these limiting beliefs that they can even do it,
Right.
they're not going to be able to see the results they want. And so I wanted to connect the two so that I can help my nutrition clients have better relationships with their bodies, better relationships with food, so that they can incorporate the nutrition.
Right. The mind is so powerful, right? It's like,
Mhm.
you know, if you believe that you cannot do something, it is almost impossible for you to get that accomplished. Like it's, I mean, it's counterintuitive to like
Mhm.
everything. So it's like you
Yeah.
almost have, if you have to change that first before you can, you know, take the more like physical, practical steps, you know. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming
Absolutely.
from. So at this point, competitively, like what are you looking at? Do you have a show plan? Do you have anything like that you're thinking of doing?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm currently in off season. So I did 2 shows, and then I went into my reverse diet, which is where I'm at right now.
Uh-huh.
And so I am looking to do another show probably next April or
Hmm.
May. Yeah, so I like to take a decent amount of time in my off season so I can grow, and also just give my body a break, because it is very taxing being in a long deficit.
Yeah. Are you do you have a year like or a time frame that you want to become a pro like by a certain point, or are you just taking it you know, as it comes?
Taking it as it comes, I think.
Mhm.
But I mean, next year if I can get that pro card, like that's the goal. So
Yeah.
yeah, really gonna be working hard this off season.
Sure. Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on. I know, you know, it's time out of your day that you could be doing something else. So I greatly appreciate your time. If somebody wanted to reach out to you for like for coaching, for whether it's life coaching or nutritional coaching or anything like that, or for other interviews and podcasts, like what
Mhm.
would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, I have a website, and then also my Instagram is a big platform that I use. So my
Okay.
website is MadelineRoseFitness.com.
Mhm.
And then my Instagram handle is at underscore Madeline Rose underscore fit.
Awesome. And I'll tag everything at the bottom of this video, guys. So it'll be just a click away. You don't have to like input it into any search engines or anything like
Mhm.
that. But I also just realized that I did not pronounce your name correctly. I said Madeline. It's Madeline.
Um, People say both. I'm not
Okay.
picky. Yeah, I go by Maddie. But my
Uh,
full name is Madeline.
Got
Yeah.
it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Maddie. I appreciate it. You have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much.